Welcome back, and today we're diving into more viewers' broken graphics card. So I've had a bunch of viewers reach out to me and they've offered to send me their broken graphics cards. They pretty much said that they're ready to send them to recycling, they're done with it. Do you want to tinker with it? Absolutely. So in the previous video, I had a viewer send me an RX 550, it was an MSI version, and it kept on crashing under load. What was really interesting about that graphics card is that he even RMA'd it to MSI and they sent them back the graphics card saying that there was nothing wrong with it. Dove it on the bench, and we were able to find out exactly what was wrong with it and bring the graphics card back around. So I'll post a link to that video down in the description, or I'll post a tag somewhere around here if you want to check that out and find out exactly what was wrong with that graphics card. Shortly after, another viewer reached out to me and they said they have two broken graphics cards. One is, I believe, an RX 6600 and a 580. And pretty much the story behind it is that he was building a computer, he popped in one, and it stopped working. Then he popped in the other graphics card and it stopped working. So two graphics cards are going bad on one computer. Never seen that before. But then when he popped in a third graphics card, the computer ran fine, and supposedly, if I remember correctly, he popped these in a different rig and they were still not working. So I'm curious to see what's wrong with it. We're gonna try our typical methods that we use, take a look at it, see exactly what might be wrong with it. Are we able to bring it around nice and easy, or are these too far gone? So let's jump in, let's get started. So for our first card, another MSI. So this one, I think, let's take a look at it. I'm reading it upside down, but it's the RX 6600 XT Mech 2 X8G OCV1. And doing our initial visual inspection, we're missing a screw right here, which is quite interesting, but also the tamper screw is not tampered. Like I've talked about before, don't get fooled by these. There's ways to take these off without messing up the tamper screw. But it is fine. And just looking at the card right off the back, it looks clean. I don't see any signs of damage. Maybe a little dirty on these contacts, so we might have to clean those up. But for the most part, everything looks pretty good. So let's do the smell test. I don't smell anything burned, so we're off to a good start. So, all right, so I think we're gonna dive into this one first and take that apart. But before we do that, let's also look at this one. And this one is probably the RX 580. Let's take a quick gander, and this one is the XFX version, and kind of the same thing. These pins are just really dirty or maybe worn, but looking at it, I don't see anything. It does have all the screws in the back. No signs of physical damage or any evidence that there was any spill or smoker action. So, all right. Just like before, smell test. Okay, nothing too suspicious or to be concerned. So pass the smell test, pass the visual inspection. So let's start with this RX 6600 and see what's going on with it. Now typically what I like to do is just pop in the card and see exactly what's going on, but I think we're going to do things a little different. Like I said, we just normally throw in the card, see what it's doing or not doing, but in this case, I want to open it up. I'm more curious with this one because it's missing a screw. Find out if maybe they took out the screw just to replace a missing screw on another card. But I'm curious. So now looking at the card right off the back, I don't see anything that's just like, there's a problem. Don't see anything burnt or missing, but then again, I could be wrong. If you see something and I'm missing it, let me know in the comments, but this is what we got. So I think what I am going to do is take off this back plate. It's a couple of screws. Now, like I've talked about in previous videos, if you're buying this on eBay or you're buying it from a Facebook Marketplace seller, don't dive into it like this. Test it first, and then if it doesn't work, you could try to say, hey, you know, can you give me my money back? And they might tell you to have a nice day and kick rocks, but don't try to dive into it until you tested it first to make sure it's working. That way you could get the warranty. You might have a good seller in the Facebook Marketplace that says, hey, I got you, dude, don't worry. So keep that in mind. But in this case, yeah. gonna do things a little different. Oh, got one up here. Now the reason why I am taking this thing apart is because I'm looking for evidence of spill or anything, which I kind of see something going on up here, which it could be dirt. It's not coming off. It doesn't feel sticky. So yeah. Other than that, everything looks mostly clean. Get you guys right in. So if you see anything, let me know in the comments. But I think at this point we're just gonna go ahead and jump right into the cleaning of this. This pad is falling apart, so if we're going to use this card in the future, we're going to need new pads. Great. And I'm all out again, so that's good too. These pads are really not confidence inspiring. Actually, I think I have some thermal putty that would work for this, so we'll keep that in mind. Let's get some of this off. Obviously, this thermal paste is pretty dry. Not the worst, not the best, but I'm taking off the heat sink, taking a look at these guys over here, and I mean, surprisingly, everything looks pretty decent on this. So let's go ahead, let's give it a good cleaning. Just using isopropyl alcohol. I like to use the spray flavor, and the reason why is because it kind of pushes out dirt and grime. Using a soft bristle toothbrush, we're just going to go ahead and just give it a good scrub, break off any dirt or grime. I mean, this thing is pretty clean considering, but still. And really focus on these. Yeah, these things have some grime right on these connectors or pins, whatever you call that. All right, let's go ahead and clean the back, same thing. And really focus on this area on the top that had that weird, I don't know if it was spilled dirt. Not too sure if the dude was a vapor, which, hey, fine, to each their own, so. Probably nothing, but still. All right, let's take the air duster and just blow all that off. Nice and clean, good as new. So I'll let this sit for a little bit and then we'll come back. All right, real quick. So we're gonna dive into this, and this is gonna be another tool that's gonna be helpful in the garage, especially when I'm trying to diagnose certain electronic things. This was sent by Topdon. It's a thermal imaging camera, and what I like to use them for, I used to have one of those infrared thermometers, but this one is one that actually goes onto your phone, which is actually pretty cool. And the good thing about this is it kind of lets you know where a short is, what's getting too much heat, where voltage is going where it's not supposed to go, and that's kind of just putting it in layman terms the best way I can. So recently I've been diving more into electronics troubleshooting, just trying to figure out where shorts go, where certain voltage is, and this is a tool that's definitely going to be helpful in the future when trying to see if I can repair graphics cards. I've been working on my soldering skills and all that stuff, so you know, this definitely helps. So nice little package, comes with a wipe, I guess, to clean the lens and stuff like that. Let's see, what do we have? USB, yep, USB type C. Let's take a look at these instructions real quick. And of course the QR code and all that type of stuff. Great. Which I kind of miss the old days of having just the regular instructions, but I get it, save paper, all that type of good stuff. But either way, so it's pretty simple. Get on the Android app, go ahead and download it. Now, one thing I do like that they include is, well, I use a case for my phone, and as you can see, this is not going to fit in there. Nope, definitely not. But this cable right here, just like so, goes in just like that. And we could plug our thermal camera in just like so by the USB-C. So that is pretty cool that they thought of that, I would assume. But either way, enable thermal imaging just in the app, confirm, and yeah, look at that. That case is kind of warm, 17.1. Well, it's warmer than anything else, but so far looks pretty good. Then you can take a photo, take a picture. Like, it's gonna be really good, like for testing for on graphics cards, to find out what is potentially shorted or what's getting heat and not heat, as we could take a picture and then we can focus on that. So pretty easy to use. We'll get the graphics card on there and then we'll try out this thermal camera. If it doesn't work, maybe it might help us narrow down what I need to dive into, but pretty cool. So back on this, and what I'm going to do is just wipe off this old thermal paste. We're not going for perfect. What I'm going to do is just pop in the heat sink, just put 2 screws on it, and I'm not really worried about thermal pads, thermal paste. I just want to make sure that this thing turns on or doesn't. I have my doubts, but you never know. Typically when a graphics card just stops working like that and doesn't work in multiple systems, probably a short or something like that. Who knows? But we might get lucky, we might not. But we've already gone ahead, we've cleaned it up. If it gives us a screen and overheats, obviously we need to do thermal pads, thermal paste, but we've done the cleaning that I typically do on these. So anything else past that would just be more invasive. Let's pop the fans on. And yes, you can test a graphics card without having thermal paste on it. It's not the end of the world, folks. I actually did that in one video, and man, people went crazy. They were like, oh, you have to put thermal paste on it. It's going to melt down and everything. We're not gaming on it. We just want to make sure that, you know, we get a screen. So that's my 2 cents on that. Now, this is going to use an 8-pin. Where are you at? All right, clicked in, sitting properly, looking good. Let's throw some power in. What are we using today? HDMI? Sure. All right, here goes nothing. Graphics card just spinning. Hey, we got a post. That's pretty cool. So the viewer said that it just wouldn't post, it wouldn't go on, it wouldn't do anything. Yeah, that's a good start. We're still not out of the woods in the sense that we could have artifacting. It might not even install the drivers. So I think what we should do at least, let me go ahead and plug my interweb. Let's just install the drivers. We're not putting a load on this, folks. Just keep that in mind. We're not. We're just installing the drivers. Oh, I think it's installing the Windows drivers. Which, that's good enough for what I'm trying to do. Let's see. Device. Display drivers. Yep, it installed. AMD Radeon RX 6600 XT. So before we dive any further and start stress testing this, let's shut this thing down. Let's put some fresh thermal paste. See if I could use some thermal putty or see what I got for thermal pads because I don't have any extra ones. And let's see if this thing really works. All right, so let's open this thing up. Fortunately, you know, we didn't put it back together properly, so that's pretty easy. And I'm surprised it worked. Based upon the email that I got, this thing stopped working, so. But like I said, we're not out of the woods in the sense that. So now the issue that I think we're gonna run into, besides the fact that it's trash day. So now that the trash man has left, the issue I think we're running into is, and this is something I've noticed, this thermal pad is a lot different from this one. So this is the one that we kind of smeared off, and I mean, look at the thickness. So this is going to sound kind of weird, but smelling this one compared to this one, this appears to be the original one. And this one appears to be something that they just popped in. So I'm going to take these out because I really don't think these are the original ones. These look more like it. Or I could be wrong. I don't know. But either way, this is some thermal putty. I use this mostly for laptops. I have used it for graphics cards and had good success. Hopefully I have enough for this little project. Typically you got to be a little, you know, generous with it and just kind of scoop it. It is not particularly easy to manage, but if you get enough and it squishes down, you'll be all right. So let me get this junk on here. All right, not the cleanest, but should be good enough. Let's get some thermal paste on here. We're just gonna use Thermal Grease G107. Got this on Amazon. I've been using this for a long time and it gets the job done. So the drivers are installed, and before we go ahead and run a stress test, let's use Tech PowerUp GPU-Z. Let's just make sure our clocks are showing the correct frequencies and all that type of good stuff. So let's zoom in. RX 6600 XT, PCIe 8 4.0, blah, blah, blah. DDR6, 8 gigs of memory, 2413, 2000, 2602. So that is reading correctly. That is always a good sign. So now let's run FurMark. If you remember from the 3050 video, Heaven benchmark, the card would run fine. But when we put it under load with FurMark, the Joker went crazy. So let's run it. So almost 3 minutes into it, 72, 71 degrees Celsius, 93 degrees Celsius on the GPU hotspot, and no artifacting, no crashing. This thing is running solid. I'm pretty sure we could get the temperatures a little better if I was to use something besides the thermal putty and the cheap thermal paste. But for now, this thing is running great. No concerns, no issues. So let's take this thing off. Let's dive into the RX 580. As far as what was wrong with it, I'll give you my thoughts, but let's jump into the other one. So as far as what was wrong with it, I'm not sure. Could the cleaning have brought it back around and kind of fixed whatever issues was wrong with it? I mean, these were a little dirty, but considering the information that I got, I'm going to go ahead and take this RX 580, pop it in, and see if this one starts running. It could have been an issue with his setup and his system, but I don't know. And it could have been just the dirt and grime. But let's just throw this in, see what happens. Maybe this one works right out the box, and if it does, that's awesome. And if it doesn't, then we'll dive in, clean it up real good, and see if that brings it. All right, let's fire it up. So the fans are spitting, but we got a red light on our debug. And it looks like we're stuck on the VGA. So let's turn it off. Turn it back on. Sometimes every now and then when you change out a graphics card, doing this, just turning it off and on, kind of gets it to work. But it's already jumping to the red light on the VGA. And for those of you who are wondering what I'm talking about as far as the red light, some motherboards, depending on the brand that you get, they do have debug type deals or whatever you call that. They have these LEDs on it for VGA, CPU, and I think, what is it, boot, DRAM. So right now we're stuck on the red for the VGA, so there is an issue with it. One thing I will try before we dive into it is let's reset the BIOS and see if that does it. So now on this motherboard, to reset the BIOS, it's right next to the battery. So let's jump these 2 pins, just like so. Just a couple of seconds. 5 is a good number. 10. If you want to just hang out over here, you can do that, but should be good right over there. So let's pop it back in. And if you're asking why am I doing that, well, just from experience. I can't explain all the technical stuff on that, but I have actually had luck where you just reset the BIOS and the card comes around. Maybe you folks could chime in the comments and kind of explain to us why that sometimes works. Or maybe I'm just crazy. Who knows? Fire it up. Now it's going to take a little longer because it has to go through all that training and all that type of good stuff. We're still on the CPU, so just give it a few. And as you can see, it works. I can't explain why that works or why that doesn't work. Like I said, let me know in the comments, but I have found that if a graphics card doesn't work initially, reset the BIOS and that just seems to work. So let's go ahead, let's install the drivers, stress test this thing, and see, is this card also savable? RX 580, drivers are installed. Let's hit up Tech PowerUp GPU-Z just to make sure, like I said earlier, all our clocks and everything is working like they're supposed to be. Ooh, Let me zoom you in. GPU clock, 0. That can't be good. So with those zeros, what's the verdict? It's running perfect. I'm a minute into it, running Furmark, and yeah, it's running perfect. GPU temp is not showing anything, but the fans are not ramping up. I've never seen that, and typically when I've seen the zeros, the card just doesn't work, and it crashes, it artifacts or anything like that. It could be that because they don't make new drivers, I think the last driver for this was October 2024. Maybe that's why it's not picking up in GPU Z or even over here. I'm not 100% sure. Chime in the comments, but as far as I can see, this thing is working. I think what I am going to do is do one more test on this. Let's run The Last of Us and see if the game plays. So The Last of Us, it's running fine, 1080p, low settings, and this is not a review on it, but I mean, 30 frames per second probably average on it, but the card's running good. Not too sure why it showed me zeros over there and it's not giving me a lot of information. I think it could be the fact that there's not recent drivers, but still considering, the card runs. It works. Now, as far as temperatures, let's go ahead and pull our thermal camera. Kind of want to see what it's showing. Just on the heat pipe right over there, 54 degrees Celsius. Are we able to get anything hotter? 55, so I'm sure she's running about 60 to 65 degrees Celsius, but this thermal camera works pretty awesome. Definitely a great tool to have. And like I said, I'll definitely be using it a lot more to dive further into finding shorts and seeing where power is going, where it's not supposed to be going, but great tool definitely to have. So as far as these cards, they both work, and let me give you my thoughts on what I think may have happened. Now, just real quick, if you're interested in this, I'll post a link down below and you can definitely pick yourself up one. This has a lot of uses, not necessarily for computers, but for automotive. That's where I'm also going to be using it for, to kind of figure out what cylinders might be firing or if your brakes are sticking up like that. Really cool tool. Thank you, Topdon, for sending this. It works great. It's definitely going to be awesome for using it on electronics and automotive. So if you guys are interested, check the link below. So what happened with these graphics cards? I really don't know, folks. I'm being honest with you. I kind of regret that I didn't just pop this in and fire it up to see if it would have done the same thing as the 580. As far as cleaning it like I did, there's nothing wrong with doing that, but I'm a firm believer in verify the customer complaint, but I was really curious considering they opened it up. I wanted to make sure that there was nothing shorted or obviously damaged I needed to be concerned of, but the card popped in, fired up perfectly, and runs real good. Obviously, we'll put some better thermal paste and put the correct thermal pads on it, and this thing will run a lot better, and the 580 is working great. I've spent some time off camera gaming on this one and gaming on that one. They game perfectly and no crashes, no glitches. I think I've put about 45 minutes into this one. I've put about another 45 minutes into that one just between stress testing it and gaming on it. So I'm not 100% sure. I mean, the one takeaway I can say, and I've been doing this for a long time, is that, and I found this to work, if a graphic card goes into a computer and it doesn't boot up right away, reset the BIOS. For some reason that works, and as you can see, by doing that, this thing came back to life. I'm not an expert, I don't know everything. The whole point of this is to show you the tips and tricks that I have used. Some of them I've accidentally discovered, a lot of them I've learned from viewers and just other people like that. And sometimes this stuff can work. Cleaning a graphics card, fresh thermal paste usually helps most of the time. Resetting the BIOS on the motherboard, that helps really good. And then if that doesn't work, you obviously can flash the BIOS, and then at that point, if it's still not coming back around, you're gonna have to dive deeper to figure out if there's a short, a bad fuse, or anything like that. I am working on getting more comfortable with that. I've gotten a bunch of broken graphics cards recently, and I think out of 6, I've brought 2 back around just doing some soldering. So as I get more comfortable with it, I'll start doing more videos on that, so definitely stay tuned. But as far as these graphics cards, they work. Not exactly sure what happened or why it didn't work for the viewer, but I greatly appreciate him sending it to me before he threw them into the dumpster. And if you got broken graphics cards that you're ready to throw out, email me at dlmtechgarage@gmail.com and I could try some of my methods to see if they work, and it's also good practice for me to learn about soldering. So comment down below, let me know your thoughts, concerns, criticisms. What do you think happened with these graphics cards? Why did the viewer have an issue with both of them not working? Any other tips or suggestions that you tried to help bring graphics cards around? And your thoughts on the RX 6600. I definitely will be doing a dedicated video just reviewing this and kind of also using the right stuff for it. So if you like this video, definitely hit the like button, subscribe if you're not, and as always, we'll see what we come up with next.